Well, hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening for our Nature Premium webinar. We're really excited to have colleagues from different organisations around the country who've been working to support the campaign, and we're going to be hearing from them very soon. So as we go through, we'll be meeting various people on the call, and there'll be opportunities towards the end of the session for you to actually ask questions. We're going to ask you to stay on mute and if possible to keep your camera on so that the people who are speaking know that they're speaking to real people. That would be wonderful. Just a tiny bit of information. The evening will finish at 9 o'clock. We will keep going till 9:30, but the talks and everything will be done by 9 o'clock. And then there will be a half an hour session at the end, which will be an opportunity for us to think together some more. So we know some of you will want to leave at 9. We hope very much you'll stay with us through till 9:30. So Sarah, I wonder if I can ask you, you're going to, as the campaign lead, give us a bit of a feel for some of the exciting things that have happened over the last year. Important that we say here right now, Forest School is important to us because we're the Forest School Association, some of us, but we really recognise the value of all the rich outdoor learning opportunities that colleagues across the country are providing for children. And we very much saw that the campaign needed to be about children getting out into nature in all the different ways that schools and nurseries and colleges have been doing. So we hope that you'll enjoy this evening. We're really glad you're with us. Sarah is going to now launch into the story of where we've got to, and then we're going to hear from our great supporters. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. I normally start when we're talking to new contacts with saying you don't have to be called Sarah to work on this campaign, but it does help. So we tempted you in with some news of the campaign, but also with some top tips that have helped us over the years. So I'm just going to give a very broad overview and include some of the useful top tips that we found out. So the Nature Premium campaign developed from a conversation at Forest School Association Directors Meeting. We were worrying about the impact that Lockdown 1 was having on children we work with. And Matt, who's controlling all the technical things, he was the one who said, what we need is a Nature Premium, like the Sports Premium. So he didn't understand what he was letting loose, but we're very glad he did have the idea. The Nature Premium, it's a volunteer-led campaign calling for the government to invest in regular nature experiences for children. And we've been using a broad definition of nature, from gardening, conservation work, to playing in wild rooms, in school grounds, or visiting city farms, forest school, and much more. Time in nature needs to be made a statutory requirement that is funded so that all schools make spending time in and connecting with nature a priority. Primarily in nature, time in nature will help children learn how to manage their own well-being, but there's an obvious additional benefit of educating about the climate crisis, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and developing the knowledge and skills to address achieving net zero and living and working in the new green economy. So the Nature Premium would be based on a similar financial model as the Sports Premium, where each school receives the same chunk of money and additional £10 per child attending the school. The average Sports Premium fund is £18,650 for the average size primary school. But the Nature Premium is different in that we are including all children. So that's also including children in early years and secondary schools as well. We believe the school should determine the best form of nature experience for the children attending that particular school. And as with the Sports Premium, the funds could be used to buy in expertise, train staff, improve grounds, and visit local areas or field centres. As a campaign, we found ourselves in an interesting position. The campaign is about getting all children into nature. Although political, it's not party political, and all parties should be pro-children. As a handful of volunteers, we haven't been furloughed. We don't have layers of management that slow decisions down and are concerned about reputation risk and potential impact on future funding opportunities. You will see that although this webinar is hosted by the FSA, we are a broad range of organisations supporting the campaign. And we've concentrated on talking to politicians, influencers and organisations to expand our network of those who know what the campaign is about and what we're asking of the government. And we describe our work as like a growing mycelial network with occasional fruiting bodies. We have approached the usual suspects, and I'm very pleased to say that Steve Backshall and Dr. Jane Goodall have given interviews to the Sunday Times for an upcoming article. And this would be my first top tip. When Richard Dunn from the Harmony Project put me in touch with the Sunday Times, I sent out emails to the great and the good with the email subject, potential opportunity of an article in the Sunday Times. And this appeared very useful as the reply rate was far higher with that subject than the previous emails. I confess our approach could be described as opportunistic and a bit disruptive, but it has proved useful. The FSA is a membership-based charity, and we put out a call to the membership for help. So one member, Sharon Friend, lives in George Eustace's constituency, and she was a perfect supporter. She approached us within 12 hours of the campaign launch. She teaches Forest School for early years practitioners and is in the middle of a PhD looking at the benefit of risk to children. And she also has 2 children in primary school, so she really knew what she was talking about. So Sharon met with George Eustace, who said he would write to Nick Gibb. So George Eustace, as the Secretary of State, DEFRA, and Nick Gibb, number 2 in the Department of Education. So this is my second top tip. Don't underestimate the value of talking to your own MP, even if they're not in the party that you support. And we found MPs of all parties have seen the value of getting children into nature and have made positive contributions to the campaign, from submitting written questions to Parliament that resulted in an introduction to the Department for Education. And they've also supplied us with introductions to useful COP26 contacts. So my MP has helped with advice about campaigns. He's explaining that single issues are good to support. He's written to Gavin Williamson and put in questions into Parliament. But it's just little things like by giving them, the MPs, good quality content, they can develop, you can make their lives easier, and they can write letters quicker and submit written questions. So it's just little tips like that which have helped smooth the way. My third top tip is ask your contacts for help spreading the word about the campaign and making specific asks. And one of our FSA directors discovered that a friend's son had started working with Chris Packham, and following an email trail, Chris Packham and Megan McCubbin gave us a great plug on their self-isolating bird watchers broadcast. So I was listening to the radio to an article on forest bathing that was followed by an interview with the Bishop of Durham. And he's the lead bishop for the education in the Church of England. And that's important because 1 in 4 children go to a Church of England primary school. Also, bishops can submit written and verbal questions to the House of Lords, which again is a useful way of engaging with the government. And the bishop replied first thing the next morning, and we met via Zoom, and he agreed to support the campaign. And a little while later, I received an email from him saying he'd included the nature premium in a TES article written with the Archbishop of Canterbury, and this was on the TES and the Church of England website. So what we're finding is people really do understand the value of the nature premium campaign, and really doing their bits to help. My next top tip is to be aware of news items and government activity. With limited capacity, we've benefited from key supporters sharing items of interest and requesting that we're invited to events. And we really appreciate this support. So I contacted Professor Siddhartha Dasgupta after seeing his interim report on the economic impact of biodiversity loss. He's supporting our campaign, and in his final report called for the education system to be transformed, so that children would understand their place in the world and know how their individual decisions would have an impact on the economy. So my fifth top tip is to approach umbrella organisations that represent industry sectors. For example, with limited capacity, we haven't been able to contact all the academies to engage them with the campaign. But the CEO of the Confederation of Schools Trusts gave us an opportunity to write a series of articles for the Trust, the Journal for Executive and Governance Leaders that goes to all academy CEOs. In December, we had a couple of discussions with officials from the Department for Education, and we were told that they agree that time in nature supports the mental and physical well-being of children, but there's no money and no political will to implement the nature premium, even though the last year has demonstrated on more than one occasion that the government can find money if it wants to. So by Christmas, we reviewed our work and came up with 2 points to concentrate on. And the first was to increase the political pressure on the Department for Education, and the second was to find the money to fund the nature premium. So we've continued to contact a wide selection of organisations and individuals who are interested in nature, education, children's mental well-being, or economics. And we've almost formed a perfect lineup for a joke: a bishop, economist, and a mental health worker walk into a bar. But I haven't quite got the punchline yet. We're talking to economists about the Treasury Commission's Structure report that will transform the education system. We have an introduction to Lord Debon, who is the chair of the Committee for Climate Change, and this is a statutory body holding the government to account on addressing climate change. And in the latest report, they recommended the Department for Education use schools as a means of increasing public awareness and understanding of the need to move to net zero and prepare for the risks of climate change. We're emphasising that the nature premium is in line with the government's Green Future, our 25-year plan to improve the environment. And we're starting discussions with COP26 organisers, as the nature premium would be a perfect way of starting education around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, with only 9 years left before the agreed deadline. On the finance front, we've started looking into how we might raise a private offering to pay for the nature premium. It is a lot of money. It's difficult to work out exactly how much, but I'm thinking roughly in the 900 million per year region. But this is the year to make it happen, post-pandemic and pre-COP26. We have started having some useful conversations with individuals who like the proposal, understand the need to get children into nature, and know people who can help. And I'm convinced that raising the money is not a pipe dream. So finally, I'd like to thank all those who've donated their time and expertise to support the campaign. Some have worked on one-off projects, some contribute regularly and provide a wise ear and help reflect on dilemmas. And I'm most grateful to work with individuals who believe in the power of nature and its benefit to children and contribute with their generosity of their time and skills, kindness and thoughtfulness. But the downside of working on the campaign is that I have noticed a change in my personality. I have become brazen about asking for help with the campaign. From my point of view, I'd like to thank you for coming to this webinar and ask you to contact me if you know anyone who is working with or has worked in corporate banking and corporate investments.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a whistle-stop tour. That was really great, really great. Thank you. So we're now going to hand over to Richard Dunn of the Harmony Project, who has been working tirelessly for the Nature Premium campaign, as well as doing all his Harmony Project work. So Richard, we'd love to hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. And can I add my thanks to you and Sarah, the two Sarahs, for all your amazing work on this campaign to date. And of course, we are not giving up. So thank you as well to everyone else for being here tonight. It's great to be with you. I'm the Sunday Times tip-off guy, but as Sarah Lawfull has just said, my other work is as Director of Education for the Harmony Project. And that work, very much like the Forest School Association work and many of the work of the projects that you're involved with, is focused around nature and really getting children to connect to nature, to learn in nature, to learn about nature, and just as importantly, to learn from nature and to see that they are very much part of the natural world. So it feels like right now is a really important time for us to get this nature premium message out there and to see if we can really make this happen. I remember a little while back, as I was formerly a head teacher, and I remember the sport premium coming in, and it needed a lot of creative thinking to get the funding that Sarah's been talking about, to get the funding in place. And it's really important that we now see how we can be really creative around getting the funds to enable this to happen. And the more we can think creatively around that and engage in creative conversations with others to explore that, the more likely it is to happen. So we need this commitment that Sarah and Sara have highlighted, and we need that creativity. And I think we need the courage as well, just to stand up and be counted on this. You know, some children get fantastic nature-based learning experiences, and others sadly get very little, if any at all. And we need to level the playing field, or the woodland, on that front, and really get all our children out into nature and appreciating it. And many of you will know Tim Smith. He set up the Eden Project. And I was talking to him recently. I did a podcast with him, and I asked him, where has his passion for nature come from? And he said, it was just my childhood. I spent my childhood out in nature, mainly in and around ponds, learning about pond life. And he said that captured my imagination. And now all I want to do is to help others to appreciate and fall in love with nature. So he shared a lovely quote, which you may have heard before, but I'll share it with you anyway. He said, we need to be asking not what sort of planet we are leaving our children, but what sort of children we are leaving our planet. And it seems that if we want our children to really care for our planet, the most important thing we can do for them when they are children is to connect them to nature, and then they will do all they can to care for it for the rest of their lives. So thank you for being here tonight, and I'll share with you a link to the Harmony Project's work so you can just get a sense of what we are doing. And let's all see if we can have the commitment and the creativity and the courage to make the Nature Premium a reality.
Thank you, Richard. Some great enthusiasm and wise words there. I think that quote's going to make lots of us listen again and write it down. Thank you so much. Now we're going to hand over to Tim Gill, who is our FSA patron. Many of you will know Tim's work on risky play, and he's going to come and bring us a few thoughts around nature and the Nature Premium now. Thank you, Tim. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And yes, I'm proud to be the founding patron of the FSA. And I guess I'm going to just share a sort of overview of what I think is happening right now with children's lives. I'm not a practitioner. I suppose I fly the flag for expanding children's horizons and enriching the diet of experiences that children that we offer to children. And I'm sad to report that just earlier this week we heard that the horizons of childhood are still shrinking. Some important research by Professor Helen Dodd, who's actually a child psychologist, with a robust study on children's play experiences, and revealing, amongst other things, a drop in the kind of age at which children can play out compared with the previous generation. We know, sadly, that mental health problems are on the rise with children. That's a long-term trend, but appears to be being exacerbated by the pandemic. Interestingly, today we saw the launch of a new organization that's emerged from a report by the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the Lancet. So some big hitters, and it's called Children in All Policies 2030, and it's a rallying cry and an agenda around a much stronger focus on children, particularly around the changes that we're going to need to make as a result of climate change. So I'd suggest we check that out. Of course, we all know, and the evidence is building about the value of time in nature and the importance of outdoor play. I'm not going to rehearse that too much, but to be clear, my interest in Forest School and outdoor learning is precisely because of the way that the work that many of you do adds richness to children's lives, and adds particularly the opportunity for them to have some everyday freedoms, to learn what it feels like to have some autonomy, to interact with the people and places and creatures around them, to find out what they're capable of, how they can have some say over their own lives, and to be more resilient. And that's why I'm such a big fan of the Nature Premium Project. As somebody who spent some time working in policy circles, you know, it's a very elegant, well-argued, compelling, and yet practical and achievable program. And I'm really pleased to hear the progress that's been made so far. So I'm going to leave with just two closing thoughts for you all. And one is around the idea of evidence-based storytelling, and the other is just a reflection or two about the pandemic. So what I mean by evidence-based storytelling is that those of you who work with children and work with families, just really be on the lookout for those episodes, those anecdotes, those occasions where you see magic happening, and where the work you're doing with those children and families speaks to that wider body of evidence that we all know, and that you can turn that into a story that you know any audience will find compelling. And finally, just on the pandemic, I'm increasingly struck that one of the things that I think we need to be making clear to everybody, to adults, is that, I was going to say we have asked, but we haven't asked. We have made children make great sacrifices in the last year, enormous sacrifices, sacrifices for their education, from the time spent out of doors, their friendships, their social networks. And we've done that not for their benefit, not because of the health threat to them, but for the greater good. And so I think now is the time for us to, if you like, make a moral case that we owe children a debt. We owe them a huge debt because of those sacrifices. And I can't think of a better way for us to repay that debt than to do what we can to enrich the experiences that children have of the outdoors and to expand their horizons. Thank you.
Wow, Tim, how does anyone follow that? Thank you very much indeed. It would be wonderful. Could you please put the links to those reports into the chat box? Is that possible?
Yes, I will do that.
Really useful. Thank you so very much. And hopefully you're able to stay for people to ask you questions at the end. Is that lovely? Thank you. So now we're delighted to invite our great friend Anne Hunt, who is CEO at the Council for Learning Outside the Classroom. And Anne has been working tirelessly on the Turning Learning Inside Out campaign, which we also are recommending to you and support. And Anne has also been helping us thinking really around the ways that we can bring the Nature Premium campaign to a bigger and wider audience. So Anne, let's pass over to you, and we look forward to what you've got to share with us.
Thank you. I don't want to have to follow Richard and Tim though, thank you. And I'm probably here. I might stir things up a bit slightly, because certainly when we first came across the campaign, we were not sure if there was a fit, because, well, so I represent Council for Learning Outside the Classroom. So we were set up in response to an education select committee about 10 years ago to make schools' lives easier, so that they could identify providers of services that were high quality in terms of their risk management and their learning as well. So that's why we were set up, and also to champion this sector. But to facilitate that champion role, because it's a tiny charity, we needed that evidence. We needed evidence-based stories. And I worked with Natural England at that time, but we worked with CLOTC to try, that's where I know you, Tim, to build that evidence base. So we've taken a long, it's not reactive, a long 10-year journey really to get to where we are. So we knew we needed to get the evidence base in place so that we could make the case and show what we needed to do. Put our money, put the money in the right place. So what we did was we created new indicators for both contact and connection with nature. So that and identified that those two things are different. So there's now national indicators for both those things, and that sort of seminal work really, that nature connection is not the same as contact, and it's that nature connection, that measurable scientific construct about your relationship with nature, that's the strongest predictor we have of well-being and pro-environmental behaviour. So if you want good general health, we need time in nature and contact with nature. If you want good well-being, mental health and well-being, and pro-environmental behaviours, you need connection, you need both. So that sort of shifts that frame. And the indicators showed that the clear inequality, so children from lower income households much less likely to visit the natural environment, either with their family or with their school as well. And then the challenge here is that we identified what those barriers for schools are. So we did some national insight, ran a national demonstration project, and we showed that actually fundamental barriers for schools are not curriculum and money. They're underpinned by more local factors, largely around the confidence in the school to actually begin to deliver their plan and deliver their curriculum in a different way beyond the classroom, and then just getting lost by this fragmented offer coming from the wide diversity of different sectors trying to put offers into schools. So actually that was quite a difficult message for the sector to hear, because they underpinned it. But we did the demonstration project, shows that was the case. But the beauty is that all works better if you add money and statutory requirement to it together. So I'll come back to that at the end, and that's why I think there is a really natural fit. And all that evidence went to inform government's commitment to the Children and Nature programme. And we've got Sara here from the Wildlife Trust. That's operating on a few hundred schools, very targeted to get very specific impact evaluation data on health and wellbeing and engagement with school. And it engaged DEFRA and DFE and their commitment in that. So and actually one of the other reports we can put out is finally 2 years later, the DEFRA report that they commissioned on school-based outdoor learning has been published in the last week, and it actually says, let me quote what it says if you haven't already caught it, because there's a cracking headline in there. Outdoor learning is associated with the increased academic progress and positive impacts to outcomes such as self-confidence and rates of physical activity, and your reach into the groups that we're targeting as well. So it's actually very timely for us, and that's an independent government piece of research commissioned from Exeter University, so that's really useful. But when COVID struck, we knew there was an urgent need to do more for more children, more schools, and we wanted to use all the evidence that we gathered so far and sort of expand, if you like. So there was a bit of a commitment around the Children and Nature programme. We wanted it much bigger, much wider. And because we're used to working with government, we knew they didn't have any money, but we knew we had a sector that could be mobilised and scaled up, but that needed investment. So we brought together the Turning Learning Inside Out consortium, collectively within a couple of weeks signed, literally less than a couple of weeks, signed a joint statement commitment that we wanted to mobilise to support schools to get their children out, to support health and wellbeing and recovery through the COVID crisis. So we have that mechanism, if you like, we have that sort of low cost approach that says let's mobilise what we've already got as a pragmatic solution, and it will very much be focused on addressing those known barriers. So that's with the DFE, has been for a year. We've got more interest from the health sector, I have to say, but that's still there, it's on the table. And the beauty is we know that together, I suppose, if we can get statutory requirement and a bit of money for schools and link it together with that mechanism for mobilising all the high quality providers that are out there to support schools locally, that is gold plated, and that will really work because it responds to all the evidence. So I suppose in summary, we've got a crisis, children's health and mental health and wellbeing. We know nature has to be part of that government solution to address that. It has to be. We know schools are great gateways, and we know what the barriers are to overcome for schools, and we can do that. So that's why I think it's a natural fit.
I'm sitting here cheering.
Oh.
And I think other people are going to be clapping where they're sitting and listening to that. And thank you so much. That was a whistle-stop tour. There are people raising hands and all sorts of things. I'm sure there'll be questions as we're going through hearing you speak, and from Tim and Richard. So I just remind everyone, please pop something into the chat box if you've got questions, and we will come to them. And you must need a cup of tea after that.
Oh, sorry, did I speak really quickly?
No, it was brilliant. You fit so much in, and you've done a grand job. Thank you. You got loads in there for that 5 minutes. Thank you. Masses of value for money. Thank you so much. Right, we're going to come now to Hattie, who is coming to represent Teach the Future, and we have loved meeting Teach the Future colleagues. They have so many brilliant ideas and we really support their campaign. So Hattie, we'd love to hand over to you and hear more about it.
Thanks, Sarah. So good evening, everyone. My name is Hattie Phillips and I'm an England volunteer with the campaign group Teach the Future. So before I go on to discuss the interests in the Nature Premium campaign, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about our campaign. So this campaign was established in 2019 as a youth-led organisation. We do have an adult advisory board, but most of the meetings I attend are with young people just like myself, and our age range is about 12 to early 20s. So our main aim is trying to bring climate education into the curriculum. At the present time, young people are not equipped with the knowledge to deal with the effects of climate change. And as the next generation of young people, this is like a vital part of our lives. So we have a few main asks from the government. However, these do differ between the 4 nations, but the main ones include getting green skills into many vocational courses, making educational buildings climate friendly on the journey towards net zero. And of course, like I've said, teach up-to-date climate information within schools. And if we want climate information within schools, that means teachers need the correct training and key bank of knowledge to be able to pass this information on to the young people and equally staff as well. We are pleased that our campaigns can work alongside each other, as the goals of each campaign ultimately could give the opportunity for a lifelong learning and connection to the natural environment. This is because both organisations understand the implications and the benefits of young people being involved in nature and subsequently learning about climate change and the effects that it will face on society. Many of you will be aware of the theoretical practice of head, heart and hands. And like, wouldn't it be great if we could just live this in every single part of our lives? And this doesn't just relate to the environment, but in every aspect of a person's life. Both our organisations cover these 3 areas really well and use connections of each to embed a sense of understanding and emotional connection. The Nature Premium campaign could provide young people with regular visits to and learning in nature. And we know that children have a natural curiosity and affinity with the natural environment, a learning landscape that is varied and rich in its resources. Like somebody's already said tonight, many studies have been carried out to demonstrate the importance and experiences natural environments, creating memories that are then held and replicated in an adult life. And if this connection is not made as a child, then it is far less likely to happen as an adult. The Nature Premium campaign is a perfect example of how memories and positive experiences will help young people where they enter secondary education. By highlighting both the heart and the hand elements, children will be prepared to deepen their knowledge and have the capacity to engage the head element. By getting children from early years through to primary school to have this connection to the world around them will subsequently deepen their passion and the environment, leading to a love for nature that only comes from sensory experiences. So moving on to the Teach the Future aspect of the head analogy. We want young people to have a lifelong understanding of how they can live a sustainable and fulfilling life with a climate conscious attitude. The knowledge taught at school may help them to discover green pathways or careers and information that they will keep raising the profile and importance of climate science. So when people think of information sharing, it is a presumption that it is an adult teaching a child. However, with Teach the Future, we're keen to break down this and share information intergenerationally. And more recently, we've been working on a side project to our main campaign called Teach the Teacher, which gives young people the opportunity to inform and help support their school staff. We've been focused on what individual teachers could do to incorporate into their lessons that link to the climate change without direct change to the curriculum. So like the Nature Premium campaign, I'm sure we have learned to think creatively and outside of the box to achieve our goals. Young people need to know that they could be part of a green recovery, and there is going to be a green recovery to aim towards helping the planet by training to become anything from like climate justice lawyers or marine biologists, climate scientists, engineers, and a whole range of other green jobs. Sadly though, There is not clear pathways that lead into these careers. So the more we talk and communicate our expectations and for our future, it's more likely to happen. And who better to come from that than a youth-led campaign? Secondary students must be provided with the tools they need to make decisions about their future. Our organisations no doubt face huge challenges, and I'm sure that we have both faced closed doors. Campaigning is hard work. However, this particular issue isn't just going to go away. There has never been a better time to fight for the planet and everything upon it. Therefore, it is so very important that like-minded organisations such as ours come together and work collaboratively, and we will focus on the future of nature connection and education. Thank you.
Hattie, thank you so very much. That was wonderful. We were delighted that you were able to join us this evening. There's so much in what you've talked about, especially the emotional connection. I think for many people, that understanding that that children and young people in nature are going to learn to love the natural world. You've given us much to think about, and I'm sure there'll be questions in the box for you as we move on through. I think your really great explanation of the career pathways and how important that is going to be. That's something that has been very powerful for us in the Nature Premium campaign. So thank you very much, Hattie. We're going to pass to Aura, if Aura is here at the moment. I know Aura's not feeling brilliant today, and we're really grateful that you have joined us, Aura.
No problem. Yeah, I have just apologise in advance. I feel like my face is dissolving, so I'm just gonna do the best that I can. So just to introduce myself, I'm part of UK Youth for Nature, so we're the UK's leading youth and volunteer-led network, and we call on politicians and governments in the UK to take urgent action and tackle the loss of nature and wildlife across the UK. We provide a platform for a network of 16 to 30-year-olds. So I'm about to age out of my own organisation, unfortunately, at some point soon. And we provide a platform for them to have their voices heard on all manner of issues relating to biodiversity and nature-related issues. And I guess why I'm here today and what will probably become clear is because the Nature Premium campaign aligns really well with one of our campaigns that we're running at the moment called the Nature Nearby campaign. And I'll just explain what it is very briefly. It started last year and we wrote a letter to the government that was signed by over 50 organisations, calling on them to invest in high quality natural spaces for young people, citing the importance that it has in terms of mental and physical health. We spoke about the inequalities that Anne has already mentioned in terms of socioeconomics and ethnic background and things like that. We also spoke about the quality of the green spaces, especially given that most people live in cities these days, and I think the statistic was that by 2050, almost all of us will live in cities, and so this crisis, this nature crisis, may become even more acute as time goes on. What we've done this year with the campaign is we've kind of refined it into 3 streams. We're focusing specifically on mental health and well-being, ecological health and infrastructure, and diversity and inclusion. And I mean, essentially, we feel that the Nature Premium is not only a fantastic idea, and if you speak to anyone in our organisation, they get quite excited when you start talking to them about Nature Premium, it's a fantastic mechanism for which our aims, our goals can become realised. What better way to allow children this connection to nature that they very much miss out on, depending on their background, depending on their location, depending on all number of factors, including the way that the world appears to be now, and in terms of Tim was speaking about the freedoms that children have access to is kind of shrinking. And so we essentially wholeheartedly support the Nature Premium campaign as a youth voice, as you know, in addition to other legislative changes that are necessary in order to prevent this crisis. We think that it's an ideal mechanism to encourage that connection to nature and help young people and children spend the time in green spaces that will allow them to nurture that connectedness that then leads to improved academic performance, well-being, confidence. I apologize, I have a brain a little bit that's a bit like cotton wool at the moment, but hopefully I made a somewhat logical argument.
Laura, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. It's lovely how everyone is threading through this conversation and bringing something fresh and new. And I forgot to say, forgive me, I was so concerned about you being poorly. I forgot to say that you bring your psychology background to this.
Ah, yes, I am a practitioner psychologist when I'm not running around harassing politicians. Yes. So from a very personal, I work with young people a lot as well. And even the changes that I see when I bring young clients outside and conduct the sessions in green spaces is amazing. And you know, we were talking about evidence-based anecdotes and stories, and just from whatever you look at, the research, the anecdotes, it just seems so overwhelmingly clear that this is something that needs to change now.
Yeah, thank you. I think everyone here is probably cheering behind their mute button. Thank you. We send our love and hope you feel very much better soon.
Might take Gemma's advice and go to bed.
I think you definitely need to go to sleep. God bless. Thank you for joining us. And now we get to invite Mark, which is great. Mark from CPRE Charity is going to come and talk to us. And what's wonderful is Mark comes from the sort of countryside farming landscape background. So Mark, over to you. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Thanks, Sarah. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, as you're saying, Sarah, like it's quite interesting having heard all of these things so far, because we are like, yeah, CPRE is a countryside charity that's focusing on kind of enriching, promoting and protecting the countryside. And our kind of vision is the thriving countryside that enriches all of our lives, and that as a kind of vision and the work we do is quite different from all the kind of conversations we've heard earlier in terms of coming from an education background and from a kind of regular nature engagement for children background, that kind of stuff. And we've actually, you know, we've been kind of quite new to this work, really. So we only just started last year working on a new kind of program of work around a countryside for all, and breaking down barriers in accessing the countryside. And we kind of had to recognize right from the start that you know, we were looking at this government commission review into landscapes, and it kind of summed it up perfectly in a quote saying that kind of the countryside is a largely white, largely middle class, able-bodied club. That's what it feels like, with rules that only members properly understand. And I'm sure that when, you know, people here as well, when you go into the countryside, and I know I felt it as well myself, like you could probably relate to that feeling of it's not a very diverse place, and it doesn't feel like, you know, everybody in the country is able to enjoy it to an equal amount. And so we were starting from that point that, you know, we're not the experts in this because we're not a particularly diverse charity ourselves, and we have a lot to learn. So we spoke with loads and loads of different people last year, and it was, you know, some really, really insightful conversations that, you know, led to us realizing just how deep rooted some of the barriers to access in the countryside are for different people from different backgrounds and different communities. And it helped to guide our campaigning on this as well. So we were starting from a point that we knew we wanted to campaign on children's engagement with nature. And our starting point for this was the same government commissioned review called the Glove Review into Landscapes, which had a recommendation in it. that every child has a night under the stars in a national landscape. And we were part of like the proposal for that being a recommendation, to the government. So we knew that that was a good place to start. And it was about universal experiences for all children. But yeah, after many conversations with teachers who are working with children, with campaigners, with grassroots projects who are working on the ground to deliver like regular engagements with nature for children, and particularly those who aren't experiencing it now, we came to quite an important conclusion that for this to really be a universal experience, that to fix the inequalities in children's access and engagement with nature, it needs to be done for education. And that was around the same time that we met with the Nature Premium campaign and Sara, and it was just kind of perfect, because it just kind of came together perfectly, like, because everything that the Nature Premium campaign is trying to do has this kind of underlying social justice element, that every child deserves that right to have a regular engagement with nature from an early age and repeatedly throughout school. And it's so based on evidence and experience, so it was perfect. And we knew as well that this is kind of something that we could put our energy behind. So since then, we've been trying to, we've been involved in the campaign development and hoping to continue that involvement. And it's just amazing that, you've met so many people so far, and you're really making such a difference. And it's great, hearing Sara's update on that. And just every time we have an update, it seems like you've met a new person and somebody's written a new article. So it's great. And yeah, I think like we're very new to the space, but from what I've learned so far, it feels like, it's so important that we all work together for like a shared goal. And that's just what I feel like so far when I hear it. And it's great to hear so many like organizations from such different like standpoints and stuff coming together to be like, this is a great idea, let's get behind it. And then the other thing is just that learning from the last year, we've learned so much about being led by the voices of those that are impacted, and taking a kind of intersectional lens to that. So looking at teachers and parents, but mostly the children themselves. And I really like Hattie's like point about this project about like teaching the teacher. I think that's a great idea, because the more that we can listen to the children themselves and young people and those who are experiencing lack of nature engagement, especially those who are experiencing it now from different backgrounds, who have the least engagement, the better we can kind of inform and make our campaigning representative and truly kind of rooted in justice and equality for all. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I imagine what I've just said is quite different, because it's just a slightly different approach that we've been coming from. But it's just great to be involved in the campaign, and thank you for having us and me.
Thanks, Mark. It's wonderful though to see how all this exciting work is happening in all the different organizations, and how threaded together we're more effective. I think that's exciting. We're delighted that we get to work with you. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us this evening. Now, I'm mindful of time, and we just have, and forgive us rushing on from you, Mark. Marnie Rose from the Garden Classroom is joining us, and she has a very delicious film with children outside doing lovely things in nature. So it's going to be a lovely way for us to round up the kind of presenting part of our evening, and that's probably going to take us to about 9 o'clock. So if you can hang on, everybody, until we've finished hearing from Marnie and watched her film, we'll have a little roundup, and then there'll be opportunities for questions. So Mark, thank you very much indeed, and we'll hand over to Marnie. Are you there, Marnie, or have we lost you?
Sorry, classic. Yes,
hi, you're on mute.
me. So hi, I'm Marnie Rose from the Garden Classroom, founder of this charity based in Islington, North East London. So we have the negative USP of having the lowest amount of open access green space per person to anywhere else in England. And we started the charity in 2008, and we deliver a pop-up, if you like, outdoor nature connection experience, taking primarily children, young people, but we're expanding our audience out into natural spaces, whether they're hyper-local spaces, London spaces, or even further afield to the countryside. So the scene behind me is a farmer's field in Kent, where we've been operating since 2013, and we target state school primary school children, and we take them on these residentials, which are quite moving. So there's a short video which is about 6 minutes long, and you can see for yourself what the children think about the work that we're doing with them and for them. And this pretty much builds on what Mark was just talking about in terms of the link to the countryside and how important that is, particularly for urban children, particularly those in London, because it's so built up, and particularly those from state schools. So there we go, ready to play the video. Hope you enjoy it. It's called Pretty Much Everything You Dream Of.
So many changes I've seen. The mixing up of children in their tents, their groups there, and then having the identity of their clan as well. I've seen a kind of everyone being able to revolve around, and those friendships develop between children I never thought would interact with each other. Lovely teamwork. I've seen all the different settings we've been to, you know, just general application of the skills they've learned through all their activities. Finally being brought together in the activity they did last night where they were cooking their final meal. That was a really, really great piece of teamwork. I've noticed a huge change in the behaviour of the children, really trying to manage their emotions, regulate themselves. We talk a lot about impulsive emotions, which are a regular occurrence in the school day, and they've really, you know, tried to manage that well. I think the biggest thing they've learned across all the children is really developing their resilience for tasks, which I think is so important for striving in an educational setting, that really keeping on, having a go, the creative thinking that they've tried, you know, in this kind of setting is 100% applicable to every kind of academic challenge they have. You know, trying it a different way, problem solving together, yeah, that would be brilliant for them. Yeah.
I love this camp because we get to sleep in really like good tents, and we get to like learn new things like how to like make fire with matches, but not only with matches.
Climbing trees, like normally I wouldn't do that in London, but these times I've had the opportunity to do it. I felt really happy climbing the Frog Rock and learning about the Bluebell people, sleeping in tents, sleeping outside, looking at the stars, burning marshmallows. I suggest everyone just comes and have a sleepover over here. It's really fun. I think like I'm a different Eden, because like in the first time I was so scared. So like Sara said, you could hear screams here, there, everywhere because of the insects. But now I think, yeah, like I'm changed, because like I don't really care about the insects no more.
Maybe when we went to the woods and we kind of stop talking and just listen to the environment, I think that might help me listen better in class. I will always remember every single thing we've done here.
I've learned that here at Hobbs Hill, if you get out of your comfort zone, you can do a lot of things, and you need to have a lot of teamwork to do things. And if you can use teamwork and get out of your comfort zone and do things that you've never thought that you could do, you could achieve anything.
I feel like I have been like more confident in things, and I feel like I'm a bit grown up since I've been here, because I feel like I can do all these grown up kind of things. Cooking, cleaning, chopping
things and lighting fires with wood. I've loved being here because like the flowers of the nature is just like beautiful, and it's something that in London you don't really get to see a lot. I remember that it was fun, great, and beautiful. I love being in the woods because you could see animals, you could see deers, you could see pretty much anything you dream of.
I could actually see children whom I never see laughing or even smiling sometimes. They were laughing out loud and they were kind of, enjoying themselves. So that was a great thing to do, to observe. This experience will help them most definitely in the transition to secondary school, because many of them have been kind of sheltered by their parents and they haven't been allowed to do much for themselves. So here they actually had to take ownership of their own lives, as it were. What I really enjoyed was working with TGC team. I've experienced many facilitators on different trips and workshops, and it's very important that the teaching staff or whoever comes with the school have good rapport with the facilitators on the other side. The freedom, but on the other hand, the security that was provided. So I didn't have to worry that even if they go to the bottom of the field, that there is any danger waiting for them. So for me as a teacher, that's a constant presence. Are they safe? Are they all right? Are they going to encounter any dangers? And I didn't have this feeling here. So that took a lot of kind of weight off my shoulders. I don't think they will forget it. I don't think they will ever forget it. I think this is something that they will always remember.
I'd just like to say thank you so much for this wonderful experience. You couldn't have asked for more. It's a lovely, lovely setting. So exciting having such magical woods so close by. That has been a really, really special thing to be able to just trek down, and it's all basically on your doorstep. Just this lovely, safe environment for children to explore and enjoy.
Thanks, everyone.
Marnie, you have made lots of people very happy. Have you been reading in the chat box? There are some wonderful comments in here. Thank you. That's a really wonderful way to end this section of our evening together. I'm just looking through to see if there are any questions. What I think we'll do, if it's all right with you, Marnie, is say thank you very much to you. And Matt, I think this is the point at which we bring Sarah back in to say good evening to the people who are leaving at 9 o'clock. And then anyone who's able to stay to join us for the last half hour, we would love you to stay. So Sarah, are you happy to come in your official capacity and say thank you?
Yes, it's a huge thank you to everyone who's given up their evening to come along, and please keep in touch. Even if it's just a case of checking over the website to see what's happening. We'll try and keep everyone updated. If you have any thoughts as to how you might, anyone you know in the know, or anyone you know who might know somebody who knows something, if you could just give us a shout, that'd be fantastic. And we'll keep on fighting the fight. It's sessions like this which really boost enthusiasm. I think Laurel's right, it is hard work campaigning, but it's a powerful message, so we're really grateful for your support, and it helps us to keep on wanting to make that change. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. If you're somebody who is going to nip off at 9 o'clock, feel free to do that, and we'll wave to you and say goodbye and thank you for joining us. If you're able to stay for this last half hour, we're going to have some time to ask our panel of presenters questions. And we are going to go into breakout rooms for conversation as well. So let's have a little peek, see if there's anyone here who has particularly put a question. can I ask if you've got a question that you especially would like to ask, that you use the reactions button if you've got it on the bottom bar.
I think Fiona had something she wanted to say, Sarah. That's possible.
That would be wonderful. Let's go to Fiona straight away then.
Yeah, I was just in a position to be able to share the Year 1 findings from the Nature Friendly Schools programme, which Anne hadn't told us about earlier. So for those of you that maybe don't know too much, it is a DFE funded project, part of the Children and Nature programme. We have managed to be able to deliver Year 1 despite a lot of the challenges that lockdown has given us. I've actually got a couple of slides I could share if you want me to, aware of time, so it's up to you.
No, that'd be great, thank you.
And I can be a little bit candid about what reception we're having to funding for Year 3 as well, if that's helpful, because I know there has been some comparisons about this funding going directly into schools. So bear with me and I'll just get these slides up. Oh, hang on. I need those notes. Yeah. Okay. Can you all see that?
That's great, Fiona, thank you.
Yeah, so this is just a little bit of an infographic summary of where we've got to. So Nature Friendly Schools is has come out of some DFE funding, does get some DEFRA funding as well at the moment, and it's delivered through a Resilience Through Nature consortium. So we have partners working with us to deliver the project, but we manage it centrally as part of the Wildlife Trust. So we've got Groundwork UK, the Sensory Trust, Young Minds, Field Studies Council, all helping deliver this programme. And the programme isn't a direct delivery with pupils, it's supporting a whole school approach. So it's very much a rounded approach, giving teachers support for taking learning outside with nature, but also for improving school grounds and doing nature activities that are about growing and caring as well. So it's quite a sort of rounded programme. And of course, this was quite exciting when it started off because it's only a 3-year funded programme. It's very much a evaluation programme. So the idea was to see some of the impacts from working in this way, with the hope that it could possibly be extended out. At the moment, it's only delivered in a number of areas. They were targeted, specifically targeted as those taking a high percentage of preschool meals. So it's been targeted in only a handful of areas. So we've got Shropshire, Devon, Essex, Yorkshire, Lancashire, Birmingham, and the Black Country have been involved. But as you can see, despite the challenges, we've managed to actually deliver quite a lot. And I think we've just had some fantastic feedback as well. One of the teachers who was involved in Nature Friendly Schools was able to join our Wildlife as well with our CEO. And that's just been incredible and led to some spin-off. And just before Easter, there was some great media coverage with our own, if you like, a programme manager managing to get on. So some of the stuff coming out is really interesting because the project had to sort of change and adapt after the first lockdown and schools going back in September. And what teachers were asking for, purely asking for, was about health and wellbeing support around resilience and confidence. And what they were telling us was actually going back into school, and this is at primary and secondary level as well, that teachers and pupils had lost confidence in how to be outdoors. Even though they'd been really active before lockdown, they'd had this period away from school, and then that took some sort of build-up of lessons. So I think that's something for us to really draw on, is how we sort of understand that children and young people going back into school, even now as well as they go back in, they are coming back into school with a completely different landscape than we've ever known, and it is around health and well-being in particular. So I won't go through all those details. I'm looking forward these to Sarah and Sarah. I know you have to be called Sarah, but sorry, afterwards. We did have a little video as part of that, but I won't play that now because I know we want to leave a chance for questions. And I wanted to bring this up to be candid about the funding. We've had a real struggle in actually securing year 2 funding, which we've secured now, but DEFRA are giving a bigger proportion of that than the Department for Education. And we actually don't know whether we're going to get funding for the final year of the project. And this is down to basically an absolute lack of understanding with DFE around what impact this could make. So it doesn't bode well for something like Nature Premium getting the support from DFE, but actually I think what we're seeing is DEFRA have got a couple of new leaders now in place who are really into people engagement and children learning. So we may see some movement from DEFRA support. So that was probably what I would say is maybe Nature Premium can look at some of the other government departments as well, which I know you have been doing. I'll stop sharing this now and shut up.
No, that's really useful, Fiona. Thank you very much indeed. I'm wondering, obviously we've got our panelist and Sunita's put her hand up to say she's got a question. So I think if we come to you, Sunita, please, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, and then I'm going to go back to the panelists and ask them if they've got any thoughts that have come out of the conversations and things we've been hearing.
Sorry, that wasn't a question. That was just me saying hi and well done. I've just really enjoyed this evening.
Well, that's
very excited by all of the talks that are going on.
Well, thank you. Ruth, you've got your hand up. Go on, give us a...
Hi, yeah, I put a question in the chat, and it was just, I suppose, to reiterate, that I'm a massive advocate of the Nature Premium campaign, but I think that it was launched a while ago, and I think since then the personal experience of the general wider public has either been fantastic to be able to get out in nature, or crikey we can't, or people seeing the value. And I don't know how the campaigns, the petitions, sorry, run, but is there a way of reissuing the initial petition through 38 Degrees, or, sort of relaunching, or someone, Chris, I think, suggested through a vase, and I don't know how you get parliamentary petitions. So I don't know the answer, but that's my question.
Is it all right if I take that one, Sarah? So we started off with the petition and talking to influencers and politicians. We just haven't had the capacity so far to be able to put a lot of effort into getting more support from the general public. But one of the points we wanted to make today was there's a climate scientist called Catherine Hayhoe, and she says that the basic thing that you can do is talk to your friends and family. And we're planning on the website to put some general letter templates that Corinne's I hope Corinne's still here, very helpfully put together for us to encourage people to write to the head teachers, to governors, to academies, to MPs. And so I'm hoping that we're now probably at a phase where we kind of readdress looking at the general public and families. We have yes, we do have some options, and yes, you're probably right that revisiting the petition would be a good idea. And in some ways, revisiting some of the organisations that we originally contacted who didn't feel they were able to support us at that point, because 9 months down the road, we made far more far more progress than some organisations thought we would. So we've got an opportunity to go back to people and say, will you think again? So thinking again for the petition is quite useful. We decided originally not to go down the parliamentary petition because I think you need 100,000 votes to get to the point where they consider discussing it in Parliament. So, and also there was seemed problematic in sharing on social media to get that support. So something like the 38 degrees has been more useful in one way. But I take your point and we'll certainly see what we can do.
Thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Sarah. Tim, Richard, Hattie, Anne, and Marnie. I think that's who's still left, and Mark.
Mark.
I was just scanning to see you were still here. Has anything kind of bubbled up for you as you've heard everyone else speaking?
I was particularly struck by Marnie's video, and thank you again, Marnie, for sharing it. It was absolutely stunning. And just by the transformational power of children being in nature, and right through from, you know, the children themselves speaking so articulately about their experiences to, you know, the staff members who really saw such a difference. And, you know, that's exactly why we are here and why we are so committed to trying to make this happen. So, you know, all the different representatives and Hattie, thank you again for speaking with such conviction. You were amazing too. So yeah, I mean, it's just trying to keep working out how we can get the message out there. I'm very aware that, you know, heads are managing an awful lot in their schools at the moment, and there are issues there with funding. I've just seen an NAHT email come out this evening, and you know, there are lots of challenges at the moment, and we have to be very sensitive about acknowledging that, but still not losing sight of the value of what this work's about.
Thank you.
I was just going to say that one thing that I've seen from it is how somebody said, like right at the beginning of the meeting, how we owe it to young people and we owe it to them in lockdown. And I think that was really, really thoughtful. I mean, young people should always have had it, and that is why we're campaigning obviously for this. But I think giving that thing of having to stay inside really showed the importance of actually going outside. So when people were inside, they may not have wanted to go outside, but then when they were told to go inside, people really understood the importance of nature. And like people who I never would have thought at school was like out on the walk, you know, look at these flowers that I've seen. And that was so nice to be able to see how important and how much of a big thing it became in people's lives. So yes, young people, 100%, we owe it to them, and we've always owed it to them. But I thought that was very thoughtful.
If can I come in at this point, Sarah? That was me that said that, and I'm really pleased to hear what you just said, Hattie. I think I do think it's, you know, that there's one of the interesting things about this campaign is that it goes slightly against, or it raises questions about the kind of catching up rhetoric, you know, which we're hearing a lot about, which is very, very focused on, you know, formal education and, you know, the 3 R's and all of that sort of narrow curriculum that we are all familiar with. But I think there's a growing feeling amongst parents and, you know, commentators, journalists, that's just, it's kind of callous, really, that it's a very callous way of responding to what children have gone through, children and young people, and I do think there is figures are you know, those are big numbers that we're asking for, but children, young people have made big sacrifices. And I really do think that putting it in that kind of language just cuts across and just leaves behind the sort of narrow focus that the government has been trying to take, but I think is finding increasingly there's resistance to, because it just doesn't square up to what children, young people have gone through in the last year. So I guess I'm very pleased to hear your recognition of the power of that argument, Hattie.
If I can just mention, following up on those comments, Kim. So there is the Times newspaper is going to launch a Times Education Commission in June, where they will be examining the future of education, and I think that's it's a telling fact that they brought together a large number of education specialists and influencers to start to examine the future of education in the UK. And what we found with the Department of Education is it's really difficult to actually meaningfully engage with them. And what they tend to do is just repeat what has been done in the past. And the approach we're trying to take is not to challenge what's been done, but say we need more. There's an urgency now. There's a desperate urgency to get children outside, and we don't really need to know what happened in the past. We need to know what more is going to be done in the future. So we have we've been in touch with the chair of the Times Education Commission, and the Nature Premium and Forest School will be submitting proposals to them, and I would encourage anyone to get in touch with them and put in their full payers as well, as a means of supporting outdoor education.
Thank you, Sarah. Is anyone who hasn't spoken this evening wanting to say something or ask a question? Go on, Sunita, you are going to do one this time.
This time I did put my hand up correctly. Just following on from what Tim has said, really, I absolutely agree. Children, I mean, I'm a primary school teacher, and I have been for 20 years now. I teach year 5, and I've seen the impact of children learning through Google Classroom. It's not done them any good. They've just loved being back at school, and I'm completing my forest school training, so I'm passionate about getting it going. But even I, within my school, come up against roadblocks of we haven't got the funding, and it is difficult. I think Sarah before referred to the report that came out in February called the Biodiversity of the Economics of Biodiversity by Professor Dasgupta. He's from Cambridge University. I actually wrote to him and said, just thank you for writing what you wrote. And if I just quote what he's written, because I think it's a fantastic line: every child in every country is owed the teaching of natural history, to be introduced to the awe and wonder of the natural world, to appreciate how it contributes to our lives. Connecting with nature needs to be woven throughout our lives. And what I really like about his report is that basically he's speaking to government, he's speaking to the economy, to capitalists, because what he's done is he's taken nature and he's actually put capitalism and money at the heart of it and said, actually, if you want to be a good business person and be viable within the future, you have to consider nature. So that's why I wrote to him, just to say thank you. And I think we will get this done. We will get Nature Premium for children, because it is so important. And I think more and more businesses are becoming aware that they do have an impact and it is so important. That's why I really liked the what Hattie was talking about. We need to educate our children so that they understand the importance of nature and their surroundings.
Thank you so much, Sunita. That was a wonderful quote to share with us. I wonder, would your children like to help with the Nature Premium campaign?
Oh my goodness,
double
yes. I mean, I have sent the email out for the teachers. We have a teachers WhatsApp. I think sent out the petition for them to sign several times, and I keep checking if they've signed or not. I will be sending it again this evening for them to sign. Yes, definitely.
Children to be part. You know, Sarah has mentioned there are going to be things on the Nature Premium website.
Yeah.
Please do get in touch with us.
I will do, definitely.
Find ways for your children to really engage with this and help lead. Joe, have you got 2 minutes to explain about the ambassadors?
Yes, wasn't on the agenda, but I'll talk to anybody about anything to do with the Nature Premium. Hello, everyone. So I'm working in the background on the Nature Premium campaign, which is something that links in with what Ruth was saying, actually, and that's engagement. And we realised early on in the beginning of the project that we unfortunately weren't going to have a celebrity that was going to bring the public with us. It was actually at the same time that Marcus Rashford was doing his amazing thing. And we realized that to actually capture the imagination of the public, you need somebody huge to be able to do that. I think Sarah said that on a capacity that we don't have the resources to be able to scoop up the public and work at top level. However, we are now just about at the stage where we are going to start looking at engagement, and I've had a very brief chat with somebody who I hope will be our first ever Nature Premium ambassador, and she's only 6, so which is wonderful. I do like Jack Harris, actually, very nice. I'll offer to be anything to do with Jack. Sunita, if you want to come with me on that one. So we are looking at an ambassador role and to bring some youngsters in as well. We really do think that there's a gap for the young ones. Teach the Future have got theirs. They're great activists, they're great campaigners, there's some really good political voices in there, but there's also a real gap for some passionate, incredibly knowledgeable young primary school children who could really help us with this campaign. So if you know any, then let me know, and I'm just in the process of working through what the roles are, what the expectations are, how we can share and help each other, and that is a really valid point there, is to help each other. It's very isolating being somebody who's young and passionate and wants to change the world. So if we can give them that platform as an outlet, so that they feel that they're actually making a difference and progress, then that's really good. And Gemma said she's thrilled as well. So yeah, so fingers crossed. So yeah, we need more film clips like we've seen.
We definitely do. Thanks, Joe. Corinne, you wanted to say something. You're muted at the moment.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, thank you very much. It was only a couple of things that just occurred to me. When Sunita, I know you were talking, you're a year 5 teacher, and so I'm an ex-teacher. I retired a few million years ago and then did forest school training and ran forest school at the school from which I'd retired, actually. But I was going to say, your children could maybe write. I don't know if the curriculum's changed vastly, but they used to, in year 5, used to be a persuasive writing unit with it that children had to do. So maybe that'd be a perfect subject for them to use. But I was also interested in what you were saying about trying to engage the politicians who at the moment maybe aren't as engaged as we'd like them to be, because they're looking at the more academic subjects and all this awful stuff about catching up. in fact, I was going to say something similar myself, but without the benefit of research to back me up, just from off my own bat, really. In that, I think the way to appeal to the Department of Education, who obviously, I don't know, this is my personal opinion, I would say don't really care that much about children's well-being, is to actually point out to them that actually children's well-being will have the most important impact on their ability to learn. Happy children learn best. And if they really want these children to go out and be producers in the economy in the future, then they need to be looking at them now and looking at their mental health and their well-being. So even if we have to approach it from their point of view, it's still, it will still actually have the same effect in that children will end up being put first. And that's, we might just have to play through their tunes in order to get the music across.
Corinne, that is the most amazing way for us to end our evening together. Thank you. Those words are wonderful. Thank you so much to our speakers this evening who have given their time so generously and stayed with us. And thank you to all of you for joining us. So, and we need to wave to Jack in his horse box, because Jack has been working hard on the Nature Premium campaign as he travels around the country. So we'll say thank you, Jack. Thank you, everybody else. A special thank you to you, Sarah, for all the amazing work you're doing. And we very much hope that you'll stay connected with us and continue to work for the Nature Premium campaign. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Matt, for all your excellent technical skills.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, and
Good evening.
hope to see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.